So, John, I wanted to talk about SB16 HB5337, I believe is what it is. The proof of citizenship bill. There was just a press conference about it over the last hour from a lot of stakeholder groups that are arguing that this will burden citizens right now and people who with disabilities or military members or family of military members disproportionately and elderly disproportionately. What is your take on how this bill might affect the burden that voters will face?
They're not wrong in terms of the burden. It will create a burden for people if they don't have a driver's license, if they don't have a passport, they're going to have to find or dig up their birth certificate. To be honest, I have to ask my wife where my birth certificate is. It's somewhere in some lockbox somewhere. So if you think, I'm a goofy political scientist. Imagine the average person trying to search around for those kind of documents. It's not easy. Here's the irony: is that the author of the bill claims that we had 6,500 plus non-citizens that registered to vote. That's not accurate, actually. Secretary of State's office had it somewhere between 65 to 120 or so, and those were all caught. Great thing about Texas right now is that we already have voter ID in place. We have protections already in place that allows the Secretary of State's office to go through and really do a great job of ferreting out who is and who's not a citizen or non-citizen. In fact, some of the people that were claimed to have been non-citizens were actually citizens. So this legislation might make it worse. I have to note, though, that this is a nationwide trend for Republicans. This is not just in Texas. You're seeing it elsewhere. Arizona had a law that's currently in the courts, by the way, and on hold. It's a push that's going on in Washington as well with the SAVE Act, which deals again with voter registration and the concerns there, particularly for women. And for persons who have changed their name, is that they don't have the documentation to actually align with who they are and therefore might be disenfranchised.
So, I mean, if it seems that it's unnecessary, then why do it?
It's politics, plain and simple. The person that authored the bill has been pushing for this stuff for years. It's not surprising that this is going forward. This was on the legislative agenda of both the lieutenant governor and the governor, claiming that somehow there was voter fraud. There is little, if any, voter fraud in this state. And when it's happened, we've seen prosecutions. But for some reason, there's this mindset that somehow there's a massive amount of fraud. There's not. Okay, I'm a cynical political scientist. My argument is, like for anything, like the furries, for example, prove it. Give me video, give me actual physical proof. Don't see it.
So, if there's not any physical proof and this disproportionately starts affecting women or disabled people
Right.
or military members, that will better, in theory, because those people tend to skew more left. That would, in theory, help Republican voters, correct?
In theory, but here's the irony. If you look at the way the legislation is currently set up, ironically, there are more Republicans who could be impacted than Democrats by the scope of this legislation, simply because primarily older voters, especially who may not have the documentation, or the disabled in particular, those particular groups may skew a bit more Republican. And in fact, the numbers suggest, at least in Texas, you may have a higher percentage of Republicans who potentially could be facing disenfranchisement under this bill.
We just saw the municipal elections here, which had, from the numbers I saw, less than 10% turnout here in San Antonio.
I've seen better turnout for UTSA student government elections.
So when you have voter turnout like that, which was less than 10% in a city of 1.7 million people or whatever it is now, um, how do you think that a bill like this, which is likely to pass given everyone's priorities on it, will affect even the seldom turnout we have now?
It'll actually probably impact it negatively because again, people have to take the time to register to vote. They have to take make an effort to actually find the forms necessary. Yes, you can have a driver's license to use as a proof of citizenship, and there are other documents as well. But those other documents, particularly people who don't have driver's license or state IDs, that is where the problem comes into play. And often those are disproportionately lower income or younger voters.
So it sounds like this affects the older voters and the younger voters, and then people in between.
Exactly.
So
In between are not going to be impacted as much now.
For I should have asked you this at the beginning. Can you just explain to me what the bill does, why, and how it would change the process for people?
It basically forces people primarily to find proof of citizenship, documented proof of citizenship for the purposes of being able to show up and vote. Now, here's the thing. You have to show up when you show up and vote. You have to have some sort of proof that shows you're actually eligible to vote. Now, in Texas already, in federal law as well, there are provisions to do provisional voting. As long as you're able to actually vote, you can go in and actually prove that you actually are on the rolls, you actually are, have the right to vote. The problem is that in Texas, it's not including tribal documents, and that is a problem. Arizona accepts tribal documents. Texas, for some reason, does not, and that could potentially disenfranchise, among others, the Alabama Coushatta and other tribes, Antigua in particular, in West Texas, who have at least issues related again to documentation potentially. I know this has also come up in Oklahoma, issues with, particularly there with a number of the tribes in Oklahoma and the issue of voter ID too.
So you have a bill that where there's in a state where there's already proof of not, I mean, you have to show proof and show an ID to
Right.
get that stuff already. You have a state that in the last 3 years removed 581 people as non-citizens from voter rolls.
Yeah.
6,000 of so or so failed to respond to the notice.
Right.
And then you have 63 people who were removed from voter rolls and prosecuted and whatnot from the state. It
Yeah.
doesn't seem like it's a widespread problem.
It's a solution in search of a problem. It really is. I mean, Texas is pretty darn good at catching this stuff. And when we do catch it, we prosecute. And often, if we catch it, if it's not prosecutable, we get them off the rolls. This is, in my opinion, it's a bit of a redundancy. We already have the laws in place. We already have the regulations and rules in place. And we have the Secretary of State's office, which already does this stuff by law.
Um, it seems like a lot of this stuff, especially in today's day and age, is really just a dog and pony show. It's just for show.
There is something to that. Now there's a discussion we have in political science. Perception is everything in politics. This is perception. The perception is particularly among Republican voters, some of them that there was widespread voter fraud in 2020. The election was stolen, all this. Oh, there was fraud in Harris County, fraud elsewhere. Prove it, please. Um, I- Political science, our patron saint is Saint Thomas the Doubter for a reason.
That's a good one. Um, I think that's all I got for you, John. Is there anything else you'd like to add about this?
It's probably going to pass. It's probably going to get signed by Abbott, and then it'll probably immediately have a court challenge.
Yeah, they're challenging it in Arizona, aren't they? It's
They have,
technically
yeah, they are. It's been on hold now for a year.
so technically it hasn't even gone into effect, and you'll
Oh,
anticipate. I think the in the Senate committee they said it'll go into effect in September.
wow. They can
Yes,
say that.
because you're expecting a challenge
I
in
would
courts
expect a
right away.
challenge. ACLU, I will almost guarantee will, and Democracy Docket's another one. I almost guarantee they'll sue.
So unlikely to go into effect this year, probably.
I would be surprised if it went into effect.
Gotcha. All right, John, that's all I got for you. I appreciate
All
it.
right,
Thank you. Thank you
sounds
so
good.
much for the time.